Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Welcome to Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and tonight we are talking about the Northern Virginia Chamber of Commerce. Joining me now is Jennifer Sciciliano, who is the chair of the Northern Virginia Chamber this year in 2018-2019. Thank you so much for being here, Jen.
Thank you for having me, Catherine.
So in addition to being the chair of the chamber, you actually have a very big job at Innova, where you are the Chief External Affairs Officer. And that's kind of been a change in you've been with Innova about 12 years.
That's correct.
So this is fairly recent that you've been with Innova. As the Chief External Affairs Officer.
It's a mouthful, I know. Well, that came about because we have new leadership at Innova. After 35 years, our former leader, Knox Singleton, stepped down, and we have a new leader, Dr. Stephen Jones from the Cleveland Clinic. He has been looking at all aspects of the health system to try and figure out how we can be more efficient. One of those ways was our leadership. I've wanted for a while to bring all of our external affairs under one roof, and he asked me to do that in July of this year. And so I'm right about at the 4 or 5 month mark, and doing pretty well.
Well, because you took over as chair in June, then you got this new job in July. It was kind of a lot of change all at once.
It's been a busy year.
It has been, but you have taken on leadership roles with the chamber, in your tenure with the chamber, and Innova has also played a role in what was formerly the Fairfax County Chamber of Commerce, which is now the Northern Virginia Chamber of Commerce. So how does your role with Innova impacted what you have done with the chamber and this transition, very important big transition they made in 2016?
So the Fairfax County Chamber of Commerce, now the Northern Virginia Chamber of Commerce, and Innova have been partners for a really long time, and we have played a role in its history as it has in ours. I guess I'll start back with when I first came to Innova. I was lucky enough to have a mentor in former Delegate Jim Scott. I took his seat on the chamber. He took my hand and walked me through everything I needed to know about the chamber and actually started me off on a really good foot. I learned a lot from Jim, and that was the start of my chamber career, if you will. Over many of the 12 years, handling the healthcare committee. We started a healthcare committee under the Fairfax County Chamber of Commerce, and then I went into a leadership role right before we changed with the Northern Virginia Chamber of Commerce. It's played an incredibly important part in my career because of the connections that I've made at the chamber over the years, as well as from a business perspective in helping us form the partnerships we need to make in the community at Innova.
Right, and in changing the name in 2016, it became effective January of 2016, the move to being just Fairfax County, which is an enormous county with an enormous budget all of its own, but it kind of is a nod to the regional collaboration, regional cooperation that's necessary when you are in the DMV.
Yeah. My predecessors thankfully recognized that a long time ago, so the conversation about this has been ongoing for a while. It was just a few years ago, obviously, that we changed the name. I think there's a realization that together is stronger. Our voice is stronger in Richmond, in DC, in the region, when we're all working together and not in the silos that we had become accustomed to.
Right, and so you mentioned something as far as your voice in Richmond. You actually form sort of a legislative agenda. Like you have people at the chamber who sit down and decide what things impact businesses and employees here in Northern Virginia.
And that's one of the hidden gems of membership of the Northern Virginia Chamber is our advocacy arm. We have an incredibly strong advocacy arm. It's an influential group of business leaders that care deeply about this community. And the process, we actually have just been going through the process to form our agenda for the coming session, but it's broken down by industry so that the issues for each industry can be discussed. positions on those established where we need to, and it forms the overall legislative agenda that we then present to our elected officials down in Richmond before the session begins.
So if I'm not mistaken, Medicaid expansion is something the Chamber supported.
Yes.
And that's kind of in your wheelhouse because you're in healthcare.
Yes.
And so it was in fact passed this year, and now we are madly trying to enroll hundreds of thousands of eligible employees. Do you see that, having supported Medicaid expansion, that now the Chamber has a role in helping your 700 member companies figure out how to get information down to the 500,000 employees that are under these umbrella companies about enrollment?
Absolutely. And first of all, we are incredibly proud of that accomplishment. I'm kind of wearing half of my Inova hat and half of my Chamber hat. We were very, very proud of that accomplishment and being able to do that for the members of our community that would qualify. I would say that healthcare is incredibly confusing. And it's not just confusing to you and me, it's confusing to everybody out there. And the enrollment process, making sure we have enough people to enroll folks, and then educating them on what to do with these benefits is really important. We just had our healthcare annual State of Healthcare conference at the Chamber, where our new Secretary of Health spoke. We had a great panel that discussed all the different issues, including the ones you're referring to now. With the insurance industry, with the hospitals, with everybody that could be at the table there to help our businesses understand what's involved with the process.
So, and I've always believed that the Chamber is truly a convener of these kind of discussions because there are so many industries represented. And Fairfax County is quite fortunate that we are not just Silicon Valley, or we're not just biotech. And that's the leadership of the county that's really made an effort to bring in a diverse set of industries. But the Chamber is a place where people can convene and discuss the things that impact everybody.
Yeah, and I would say that was one of the hallmarks of what I wanted my chairmanship year to be about, is diversifying the Chamber in all ways, and making sure that we're welcoming everyone, first of all, that we're welcoming all types of businesses, that they can come there and it can be that convener, that the small businesses can have access to the really large businesses and have an impact in some way.
And you do have a ton of different programming. Everything from women in business to C-suite luncheons to all kinds of things. How does the Chamber develop these tracks as far as what programming they decide to pursue?
Well, I mean, there are some things that we do year to year, obviously, that are important to businesses, but we really keep our finger on the pulse of the issues that are important to the businesses, to the community, and develop programming around each of those. Like I said, it's an influential group of folks, very highly educated, and very demanding in that regard as far as the information that they want to learn about.
And there's different ways that people can participate too. So you got involved in taking on leadership roles. I know that there's also a PAC board, only because my husband Tom sits on that PAC board. And that's not something that maybe a lot of people know about because it's affiliated with but sort of separate from the business of the Chamber. But there are numerous opportunities where people can find their wheelhouse as far as pursuing what they're interested in.
There's plenty of ways. Our Women's and Business Committee has incredible programming that's always sold out. They have unbelievable speakers. You don't necessarily have to be a member to come to any of these events. You can propose your own events if there's issues that you want to hear about and we don't necessarily have that filled. You can present that to us. I think that the important thing is we make sure that everyone has an opportunity to be a part of it, and not everybody knows that. I think you're right.
Yeah, and I don't think people know. And it's kind of like the debates that you all host. The last one was for the U.S. Senator Tim Kaine debated Corey Stewart, who was a candidate, and the Chamber hosts that. And I mean, that's a very big deal. And you also do it in collaboration with other kinds of sponsors.
We do. And the other point I was going to make too is that one thing that's really important to me as chair is that we're bringing up our next generation of business leaders, that we're introducing them to these things. I think when people think about chambers of commerce, they think of your grandfather's chamber of commerce, and we want to change that and make it so that all different age groups are interested in being that. What that means is that we may not look like the chamber of the past. We may have to do some things that are a little bit different in order to attract that group.
Well, it's important to be inclusive and welcoming, and to have, I think this is especially important for young people who are very impatient about paying their dues and waiting their turn. Like, I get that.
I have 2 teenagers, so I understand.
Yeah, it's like, but I don't understand. My ideas are just better. My ideas are better than yours, so why can't I right now? But mixing up the generations, and there are multiple generations in the workforce right now. That's another thing that the Chamber, I think, is also trying to take on, is how do you speak to intergenerationals? When you've got 4 generations in the workplace, how do you meet the needs of millennials? And Gen Z is coming up right behind them.
Right. We've had a lot of conversations about that. A lot of conversations about when we do programming, what type of programming we do. Do we even do formal programming for them? They prefer just to kind of meet and talk. It's not about a formal program with a panel of people. They like to do things a little bit differently, and we've started to meet them there in order to get them attracted to the Chamber and what the Chamber has to offer them.
I think that's so important, because I'm a Rotarian, which is also something that everybody's grandfather did once upon a time. But there's a Rotary Club in DC that has a happy hour club, and it's clearly meant for young professionals who want to raise money and do good, but it's kind of like they'd rather do that over drinks.
Right. Our Next Gen Council is one of those, and they are always coming up with creative ideas. But making sure that the traditional members of the Chamber are looking in their organizations for those younger leaders that can participate in those things, and therefore you're kind of building in succession planning in a way.
Oh, absolutely. And so when a company, has a membership, how does that work as far as their employees having access to participate in these things?
There is obviously a point of contact for the organization, but because of the depth and breadth of programming that we have, they can reach into their organization and put people in different places. I have a couple of different folks on different councils. It's not just me that participates. We've got somebody on our Next Gen council that represents us for Innova. But it's not limited to one person or the person that sends a check.
Right. But it's good. So you see this as a professional development opportunity then for the people on your staff or the people in Innova.
And the more I can tell our millennial generation or younger about how beneficial it's been to me, how these free events, if you will, just having access to some of the leaders of the other companies have benefited me over the years is incredibly important.
I think what a lot of young people struggle with is they know how to engage online, like social media, and they're digital natives and all of that. But what I find in talking to young people is they really struggle with in-person networking. Like, how do you have a conversation? How do you develop a relationship? How do you maintain a relationship? And how do you get by giving? All things that I think are something that are in the wheelhouse of the Chamber.
Yeah. And we've also had to build in other different opportunities for giving. That is really important to this generation.
Well, that sounds like a good note for us to end on while we go to break. When we come back from our break, we will be talking with Jen Sciciliano, who is the chair of the Northern Virginia Chamber of Commerce. And we're going to be talking about why you should be a little more interested in what they're up
to. Okay, so we drowned the fire, stirred it, drowned it again, and now just feel if it's cold.
Yeah.
Cool.
Smokey just gave me a bear hug.
I know. I already posted it.
I got a creak in my neck, limp in my step, cramping in my muscles every time I try to flex. But I don't wanna get on. Very sad, no more love. All that I could do was remember you. You know I usually say no, but if you throw me love, I'll throw you some more.
It's a big responsibility.
Oh, it's huge. I know, it's huge.
And the salary.
Oh my God, yes.
I mean, like, I was about to move in with my parents, and right before, so this saved me.
I really believe in you, you know?
Thank you. It's nice to hear that from someone.
These are cool. Did you, what did you...
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and tonight we are talking about the Northern Virginia Chamber of Commerce. Joining me is Jennifer Sciciliano, who is the Chief External Affairs Officer for Innova and also the current chair of the Nova Chamber. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So we were talking when we went off the air about all of the many things that the chamber is focused on, and it is a big chamber, just like Fairfax is and it's a big region. But one of the things that you were talking about is collaboration too, and what other organizations you collaborate with.
Well, because when we changed our name, that was one of the hallmarks of what we wanted to do. Not only recognizing that we needed to be more regional and we needed to think regionally, but also talk about collaboration and how we can work together with some of the other organizations in the area to, again, raise our voice and to have a stronger voice where we needed to have it, whether it be on the policy side, locally, federally, in Richmond, wherever. One of those partnerships that we've done a lot already, just in the 6 months, is with the Northern Virginia Technology Council. We've co-sponsored the debate with them. We have had some partnerships on events. And that's the type of collaboration that we're looking for to kind of start the conversation where more of us need to talk a little bit more together about things.
Well, and there's a lot of overlap, I would imagine, there too, because you've got big tech companies in this area. We're trying to educate the next generation of employees for these high-level jobs, especially in cybersecurity.
Yeah.
You know, and before we end this, we'll talk a little bit about how all of this has built the foundation for the Amazon HQ too.
Yes.
In other words, they didn't pick, the national landing, I don't really like that name, but they didn't pick the national landing out of a hat. They looked at many things, housing, transportation, but certainly the education of our workforce. So the Chamber's also looking at startups, I believe, too, and kind of in helping to support and invest in startup.
We do. We have the Innovation Council and our I-List, which identifies up-and-coming companies for that purpose. And they're some of our startup companies. When we talk about what the chamber is made of, it's not just the big businesses. It's the nonprofits. It's the small businesses. It's the startups. We want to be as inclusive as possible because when you do that, you get the full picture of what business as in general needs.
Absolutely. And so I guess a lot of people would probably think, why would an entrepreneur join a chamber? Because, again, people have ideas about what chambers are and who they include and what they do, and it kind of sounds very 1950s.
Yeah. Your grandfather's chamber, like we were talking about before. Right. And as I said before, I think about some of the partnerships that have been created personally and professionally because of my time at the chamber, and it's been invaluable. It's helped me not necessarily right that minute, but it's relationships, it's connections that you make that down the road you never know when they're going to be beneficial.
And again, I find that young people struggle with that more than anything else. Like they know how to be at home online, but they don't necessarily know how to be at home and with people, and also maintaining relationships. So the chamber is also a great place to find a mentor.
Right. And I think that back to my first mentor was Jim Scott, former Delegate Jim Scott. But also there are a lot of leaders in the chamber that I've looked to, not only as I was coming up in the leadership ranks, but since I've been chamber chair, that have been invaluable to me as far as making sure that I'm seeing all aspects of what's going on out there so that I can help shape and create the environment that we need to create at the chamber so everybody does feel welcome.
I can remember being invited to a meeting and I wasn't sure why. But I sat around this big room. It was a great meeting. But it was all kinds of different people. Companies, there were people from nonprofits. I wasn't really sure how I got on that list. But I thought it was just an interesting conversation because there was such diversity of experience and perspective and thought in the room. You know, again, I come back to the chamber as convener.
Right, and the richness of those kind of conversations are when you start to create bridges solutions to problems that exist, because people kind of get out of their silos and start to think a little differently, to think creatively on how we can bridge some of those gaps and solve some of the problems that exist out there. There are many from a business perspective. Obviously, transportation is a big issue for us. We have tackled many issues like that. Metro, our Metro accomplishment last year, that's you want to talk about collaboration, that was the epitome of collaboration, not just here, but DC, Maryland, Virginia together to be able to get that done.
And I think too that people look at the chamber as having a great deal of credibility because you actually produce things that have value. Again, some of the things that you've backed, like Medicaid expansion, have turned out to be, that support has been invaluable. You have a lot of credibility. You have a lot of clout in this region. Yeah,
the incredible influential group of business leaders that our community leaders, our elected leaders look to for opinions. That's the other benefit of being a part of the chamber that I would probably try and reiterate all the time to our younger members, people that are thinking about joining Millennials. You know, we put everybody sometimes in that category, but you're looked to for advice, and that is a position where you want to be if you want to make changes.
No, I absolutely agree with that. And I loved your speech. You gave the speech at the Chairman's Luncheon, which is in June, and it was a wonderful speech. And I remember you talking about the vision and how it was going to look a little different maybe than people had seen the chamber in the past. And I thought it was very aspirational, and I think that's one of the things that a word people wouldn't associate with chamber, but to be aspirational in what you think the chamber can do.
That's a great event. You talk about a convener. That brings a lot of different aspects of the business community together. Again, large businesses, small businesses, not-for-profits, our military, you know, all of those folks are in the room. And again, an invaluable event for creating that environment that we need to create.
And you do have nonprofits. I sit on the board of Bright Paths, and therefore when I sign up for things, I'm like, oh, Bright Paths, that's me. Yeah. I'm like, am I a member? Absolutely, Bright Paths. There you go. But you have nonprofits in the room because we have a lot of nonprofits in this area, a lot in Fairfax County, and they are an employer too. And they're also delivering a lot of direct services that otherwise maybe wouldn't be delivered if you didn't have all of these numerous nonprofits. And that's another event, that luncheon, where you kind of put business people together with other business people. They just happen to have different models.
Yeah. And an excellent opportunity. One of the beauties of our region is how incredibly generous people are, and for the most part, how they just want to take care of their communities. That's an opportunity to find, because we have a wealth of nonprofits, there are plenty of opportunities from a corporate citizenship perspective, from a personal perspective, to get involved in your community as well.
And it was great. And I remember not this past luncheon, but the luncheon before, people were mixed up so that business people were sitting next to nonprofit people. And so I was sitting next to people, so tell me what Bright Paths does. And I'm like, I'd be happy to. And so when we recently moved our offices, employees from Acumen showed up in their Acumen blue t-shirts to help with that move. And there's a lot of businesses whose employees do want to volunteer, either individually or, in that instance, as a group. And so you're kind of partnering pools of employee volunteers with nonprofits who could use those volunteers.
Absolutely. And when we think about regionalism and collaboration in that regard, sometimes we always go right to the policy side of things, or events or things like that. But there is also the collaboration on the local level and making sure that those that need help are being helped. And that's a very big part of our chamber, and always has been.
And again, I just want to make the point too that when you changed from Fairfax County Chamber to the Northern Virginia Chamber of Commerce, it was not to compete with smaller chambers, because there's a role for all of the chambers in this region.
Absolutely.
And again, another collaboration where there have been certain events where it's been your chamber and the Reston Chamber and the Loudoun Chamber, and chambers are working collaboratively as well.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that has made me most happy over the past 6 months, is seeing that happen and making sure that we're reaching across the lines there. For the longest time, I think the old model was, we do this in our area, and that was it. And I think by offering the advocacy piece that we offer at the chamber, having our folks join in together on that we can recognize recognize them as individual chambers, but also join part of the bigger, larger effort.
Right.
There always going to be the need for that.
Absolutely, because people want their local.
Yeah.
But the collaboration, I was glad to see that too, and I'm glad every time I go to an event, it's like, no, it's all the chambers, and I'm like, yes, this is the way to go. So the chamber has benefited a great deal from wonderful leadership. I mean, you've had a series of fantastic leaders, and in June, right after you took over as chairman, you were plunged right into the search for a new CEO.
Yes. We had a wonderful committee, search committee, that initiated and followed through that process. We had an incredible amount of wonderful candidates apply for that. I mean, it was a very, very hard process, I will tell you that, because we had so many wonderful candidates to choose from. Ultimately, and I think you're going to be talking to her shortly, Julie Coons was named as our new CEO and has hit the ground running, has initiated our strategic planning process as part of her first couple of months, and we'll be working on that through the rest of my term at least. And I'm really excited to have her.
Well, I was very excited too, because you know me, and anybody who watches this shows know I'm always talking about women in leadership roles, and the chamber talks about women in leadership roles. So of all the many qualified people, I'm sure there was an embarrassment of riches for people who wanted this job, but you ended up finding someone incredibly qualified who also happens to model this idea that you can find wonderful women and you can give them leadership opportunities.
Yes. I'm not going to steal all her thunder, because I want her to tell you all about herself. But we are very fortunate and really happy to have her. She has embraced the opportunities that we've put in front of her, as far as you talk about aspirational, what we want to be, and implementing those things. Looking at the strategic planning process and making sure that we do have the right staff, the right programs in place, that we're supporting the right things to get to that place where we want to be. So I couldn't be more thrilled.
Yeah, well, I was pretty thrilled myself. And I know you've got 2 teenage daughters too, and you have to be pretty thrilled about the fact that as they are maturing into young women, they look around and they see what you have done. They look at the women who are taking over leadership roles like Julie, and they're kind of envisioning that there's really nothing they can't do.
I hope so. I will tell you, behind the closed doors at home, I think they think there's nothing they can't do. But I'm fortunate to have 2 really wonderful girls, and I personally am excited to see the changes that are happening in the world, not just here, because that's what their world's going to be about, and they're gonna do great things. I know it. So.
I know it too, but I'm so delighted that the chamber has embraced both your leadership, that they've chosen such a wonderful woman leader as the new CEO, and I think the 2 of you together are going to have a lot to talk about at the June Chairman's Luncheon. So thank you so much for being here. It's wonderful to have had you in this segment. Please join us after this break. We are going to be talking to the new CEO of the Northern Virginia Chamber of Commerce, Julie Coons.
I surrender.
All right, pal. Get ready for the day, buddy.
Hey, Dad. Hey, Dad. Do we have a gun?
What's that?
Do we have a gun?
Maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made this vacation happen.
Double points with every purchase?
Cleverly merging promotions.
Love it.
Cross-referencing travel sites. And booking all your flights with those...
Vouchers. I got us bumped.
They were like, oh. But now they're like... Aloha. You aced this vacation. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
I tried Oxy at a couple of parties. I thought I had it under control. I didn't know it'd be this addictive. I didn't know how far I'd go to get more.
Opioid dependence can happen after just 5 days. Know the truth, spread the truth. what to expect when you're expecting
Like here.
a teenager.
Today, I'm going to show you how to teen-proof your home. First step, hide the car keys. Preferably somewhere they would never look. Challenges will come up. Be ready for them. Hi, honey.
I'm ready for the... Mom, you don't use mannequins in the mannequin challenge.
You don't have to know it all to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Catherine Reed. Tonight we are talking about the Northern Virginia Chamber of Commerce, and joining us in this segment is the new CEO and President, Julie Coons. Thanks for being here, Julie.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for having me.
So you just came on board in September, so you haven't been there very long.
No,
it's a big chamber, right?
It is a big chamber, but it's a very exciting place.
So what interested you about you? So talk a little bit about your background and why this particular position was like, maybe this is my next gig.
Yeah. Well, I was the Chief Operating Officer for the Council of Better Business Bureaus, and while I worked with many interesting businesses and certainly interesting programs, from my experience as being the CEO of the Tech Council of Maryland, I knew about this rich region full of world-class companies, world-class leaders. And when I heard about the opportunity, I really longed to be back in connection with leaders like Jen Siciliano and others who are leading amazing companies. So it was just the excitement of being a part of an organization that has that kind of leadership quality, and also the regional presence of this organization. I think, it's demonstrated well the kind of regional leadership, whether it be the metro funding, the dedicated metro funding that the Chamber was so instrumental in securing for the region, for not only for Northern Virginia, but the region. And so the attraction to be part of that regional aspiration and reality that the Chamber is.
So you're kind of like a general with some troops. I say that only because there's a lot of moving parts, and there's people, you have a staff, and we can talk about, I have no idea how large your staff is, but I think a lot of the leadership opportunities are for people like Jen who come from their companies and give their time and their talent to do programming, to take leadership roles. So tell us a little bit about your staff.
So we do have a professional staff. We're about 10 staff, which of course, if you look at our programming,
really
if you look
small
at our,
when you think about how many things the Chamber does.
That's exactly right. If you look at our website, novachamber.org, you will see the amazing amount of programming that this Chamber delivers. And that is a direct result of our volunteer leadership. So employees of companies far and wide, small companies, large companies, come forward, and they come forward in a variety of ways. Individually, they talk to us, they come together in committee activities, and they help us create this really rich content. The Chamber is really about, I think, two primary drivers of value for businesses. One is certainly the business advocacy, that the Chamber is there through its membership and its staff to ensure that our businesses have the opportunity to grow. That may be advancing some legislation or policies, and that may also be on occasion protecting them from that. And at the other side of that is also the business networking opportunities, where volunteer leaders, members, business leaders come together at all levels and interact with one another with the opportunity, hopefully, to do business.
Well, you bring up just such, there is enormous programming, and people are invited to come whether they're Chamber members or not,
yes,
correct?
Absolutely.
And so people should go on your website and actually look at some of the things I looked on your website just today, and you've got a lot of things coming up, including the 27th annual Regional Economic Conference.
Yes, we do. At the end of January, we're coming together, as we usually do, to talk about the amazing opportunities that this region offers, particularly, of course, in Northern Virginia. So look to that website and see all the amazing places that you can participate. And you're absolutely right. Whether you're a member or not, you can come as a non-member, check out what we have to offer, find out whether, what areas of fit that there are for you. Let me know, let my staff know. We'll work with you to make sure that you find the right place to participate for your company.
Absolutely, and I just got your email, your newsletter email today, which was also rich with information, a lot of events. But also what struck me is that you were welcoming a new member, the Anne Arundel Dermatology. who's opened and they're not a huge business. That's not Northrop Grumman, that's not Volkswagen. This was like raising up a new member and who's a smaller business.
Right, so approximately 60% of our membership has employees of 50 or fewer. Of the total, about 25% are employees of 1 to 4. Only 15% of our membership is greater than 100 employees. So often you will see these, these big marquee names.
Right.
But at the same time, there are so many different members of all sizes. And actually, it's very interesting, it's geographically diverse as well. About 5% of the membership is located within a Maryland address, about 5% in the district. Now the remaining is distributed mostly throughout Northern Virginia and predominantly, heavily in Fairfax County, but not exclusively. We're quite diverse. So, it is a much more diverse group than at first blanch, right? And I think that there's, again, opportunity for us to continue in that diversity. But it is, even as a small company, one should not be hesitant to put your foot forward and find a way to participate.
Yeah, Jen talked about the fact that one of the benefits is actually the networking. So you're a smaller company even, but you're rubbing elbows with nonprofits and bigger companies, and there's such talent among the people who decide to be active in the chamber.
There really is. It really is that place where civic leaders come forward from all size companies and from all types. We have companies that are in the professional services and government contracting, no surprise. But at the same time, we have banking and finance and Main Street businesses, and to your point, healthcare. So, really any business that is civic-minded, is interested in business development, has an interest in business advocacy broadly as a civic leader is not only welcome, but we desire them to come forward.
So I know you had a big conference recently. Was it your Gov Con Conference?
We did. We do annually the Greater Washington Government Contracting Awards, and I think that the best way to describe it as sort of the Oscar night for government contracting, and it's been a long-standing program, and we honor companies of all sizes. So many of these honored are in fact smaller government contractors.
Because government contracting, as I recall, gives certain preferences to small businesses, woman-owned businesses, and veteran-owned businesses. Yes. And I would assume the chamber also has all of those types of businesses too, whether they're government contractors or not.
Right, absolutely. It is a very diverse community, and working in so many different agencies and on so many different projects. So yes, you'd really see quite an interesting array of companies that are active in that segment. And it is a large component of our activity, but it's not unique. We certainly have a wide range of other opportunities, whether they be women in business programming or next gen leadership programming, a nonprofit activities. So, and one of the things that we've been doing too, the chamber started recently, is a regional committee to think as our membership about what it means to be even more a regional leader than the chamber is today. And so again, a real opportunity for all of us to come together and think about that.
Absolutely. I mean, when you think about it, county lines are very arbitrary. Mm-hmm. And we see that, from Alexandria to Arlington to Fairfax, now out to Loudoun, everybody is doing business and people live in different places and belong to different communities within that space. Mm-hmm. But again, I think the Northern Virginia Chamber is a convener of all of these parties to have a place to come together, and that, a staff of 10 is remarkable for everything you all do.
Well, I'm very, very fortunate to inherit a really gifted, talented staff. Certainly they do it all. But one of the things that I've been doing early on in these first 60 days or so is out really on a listening tour. And
Wonderful.
Part of that listening tour has been to talk to regional organizations, other chambers of commerce and their leadership about how do we all work together towards these common goals. And it's been a really enriching and rewarding dialogue. And I think you're going to continue to see that that collaboration that I think we all know is so critical to our success. If nothing else, Amazon taught us that about how to work together and how fruitful that could be for all of us.
Right, and the chamber played a role. Lots of people played a role. Yeah. I think some of us were taken by surprise. We knew that it was coming and we were waiting and waiting and waiting. But, you know, until they actually made that announcement on, I think it was a Monday afternoon, people didn't know when it was going to happen. Yeah. And it turned out this National Landing, this made-up place, I've got to confess, I don't like that. Can the Chamber do something about renaming National Landing?
I'll take that back to the powers that be.
Please,
I can't promise.
Let's just have a meeting and say, not that. Let's not call it that, seriously. But it has been important to show that we can work together as a region. I think that's what something like a major company putting huge numbers of employees wants to know, that there's a responsiveness. And let's talk a little bit about your vision for how the chamber is going to be responsive. Because again, it's not your grandfather's chamber. You know, even government contracting, you know, there was a lot of talk after sequestration that, oh my goodness, what was going to happen because government contracting was such a pillar of the economy. But the world didn't end. No. You know, and so how are you in your listening tour understanding how maybe in the future we'll adapt to these changing economies?
So, you know, I would say the most fundamental thing is business does go on, right? So it's about us as a membership organization listening to our members and understanding what they need. There will be a shift, I think, in terms of the focus, perhaps, of the shape of the economy. I would say, though, that so far, I think most of our segments are very strong, and that they, if anything, that they will expand. But part of the responsiveness is listening to new emerging opportunities. So one of the things that the Chamber's been engaged in is talking to incubators, in those that are actually fostering the emergence of new companies, and establishing partnerships with those incubators so that these small emerging businesses understand that there is this civic organization, where a business-minded organization that can help them in a variety of ways. And so that will be, I think, an early warning opportunity for us. Is there a new segment that is there that we ought to be paying more attention to and that needs our support to nurture and grow? And because we're bringing all of those leaders together, from government, from academia, from business, we'll be able to, I think, really put together that mix of talent that can support that those emerging segments or businesses.
Well, and that's what I think is going to be the future of our economy, is that we can't be in silos anymore. We have to find the places where our interests intersect. Right? And that's education, and it is transportation, and it's housing, and it's jobs that pay a living wage. But it's all of these things, and bringing people together to talk about how supporting this one segment supports the goals of everybody else in the room.
You know, economies really are concentric circles, and I think that's when we can look at Amazon and point to how many different types of businesses will benefit from their presence and also will be created over time as a function of their presence. So I think you're right. Each of us are part of this amazing ecosystem that we have chosen to call Northern Virginia home. And we've known for some time how vibrant this is, but you're absolutely right. It very much is an ecosystem of amazing vibrancy.
Well, I think, you know, listening to Bob Buchanan talk for many years about a second bridge across the Potomac, I'm not going to ask the Chamber to solve that problem, but I'm just saying, but there are some things that do need to be solved that maybe are not in your pay grade about what we have to do to solve some of the much bigger problems. But anyway, we're going to take a break. When we come back from this break, we are going to be talking with Julie Coons, the new president and CEO of the Northern Virginia Chamber of Commerce. She is new to this job. She has taken over in September, and we are going to be talking with her about her aspirational plans. Aspirational is a good word, don't you think, Julie?
I should say so.
Aspirational plans. I think this is something more people need to consider when thinking about how to give their time and their talent to create a stronger economy in which all of us are going to thrive. So please join us after the break. We're talking with Julie Coons.
This is the story of a boy who was very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where nothing could get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. It made him feel uncomfortable. One day, he found out he had something called autism. His family got him help, and slowly, he learned how to live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
What do you think you're doing, Kevin?
Was just gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
Like hearing voices?
Like your text-to-emoji ratio?
Oh man, the selfies. Selfie, nailed it.
We all have warning signs that let us know that we're probably not okay to drive. Mine is pretending to be your subconscious.
Craig, come on, man, let's split a ride home.
Being a dad is an adventure full of special moments.
A cruise?
Surprise! Unexpected moments.
I got this.
And even awkward moments.
Okay, Dad, thank you.
But every moment you spend with your kids, even the smallest moments, can make the biggest impact on your child's life. So take a moment to be a dad today.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and tonight we're talking about the Northern Virginia Chamber of Commerce with the new president and CEO, Julie Coons. So Julie, we've had a call from Heidi in McLean who wants to know about how the chamber is going to be involved in sort of ameliorating the impact of Amazon HQ2. The pressure on housing, the pressure on transportation. Do you see a role for the chamber going forward as now that this is a reality? What does that reality mean for the people who already live here?
Sure. You know, I can understand why the community would have some trepidation. Certainly every day we are challenged by a variety of regional issues, transportation and housing being foremost on all of our minds. The Chamber has a long history of working with the community through its representatives, business representatives, its nonprofit representatives, education, to address those real concerns. I think Amazon will be the same. We certainly see great opportunity for citizens every day who can have an opportunity either to work at Amazon or have that concentric circle impact that we truly believe Amazon will have. But along the way, we'll also be working with them so that they can understand what those concerns are and work with the larger policy and elected and appointed officials. And I think I would also point, Heidi, to looking at the major investments that the state has pledged to make in transportation and amazingly in education.
Oh goodness, Virginia Tech.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
$1 billion campus?
Pretty exciting. So I certainly appreciate the concerns, and we will be working with the community around that, and we'll be working with Amazon. But you know, on balance, we truly see great opportunity.
You know, it's funny because I have been, you know, again, social media, and you kind of hear people's opinions, and some people really are not happy about this because it's traffic, traffic, traffic. I can't believe the number of people are like, but the traffic, but the traffic.
One thing I would note is, you know, as I understand it from some of our economic development officials, you know, every year we absorb tens of thousands of workers, and we don't really notice it individually, but we absorb a huge workforce every year. And the Amazon rollout is over a long period of time.
Really, it's not, I think people are thinking like it's going to parachute in like it's an Amazon delivery. Boom, and then we're going to have this thing.
Right. No, it will be much more gradual. And I think, too, paired with those investments that the state and the counties have announced, we will have a good transition where the impact is minimized and the upsides are optimized.
Right, and a lot of people aren't going to choose to live in Virginia, I'm just saying. A lot of people will live in Maryland and they'll live in D.C. A lot of people will choose to live in D.C. and work wherever the offices are, even if it's in National Landing. I don't like that name. But I think, you know, again, people have to look at the long-term benefit of having an employer that can offer a variety of different jobs too. We've talked a lot about tech jobs, but not all these jobs are going to be tech jobs. They're going to provide living wage jobs for lots of other people who do lots of other functions.
Yes, I mean, this is a headquarters, so I think you're absolutely right. There'll be sort of what we might consider to be technology jobs and highly specialized jobs, but at the same time, there's going to be, one would anticipate, finance jobs and HR jobs and administrative jobs. So yes, I think that there's a wide variety of opportunity that's going to come the way of those who are interested and those who are pursuing that. And it's just really very exciting. And again, on a gradual gradual basis.
Right, but again, people have different feelings about Amazon as being the 800-pound gorilla in the room. But as we know, I can remember when Jeff Bezos was living in his parents' basement and wasn't making profit for years and years, and people are like, "What a ridiculous idea! What is this guy thinking?" So, fortunes turn on a dime, and that's the other thing that people should remember about the chamber is that companies come and go, and industries grow and shrink. But the chamber is a great place to find those opportunities too.
It certainly is. It certainly is. Economies do change, but one of the things that a chamber can provide is that stability in times of change. Whether you're a small business or a large business, one of the things you can come together to do is talk about the challenges, certainly the opportunities, and perhaps find true business opportunities. But when you're frustrated with something, or you're not sure how to handle an HR issue, or you're a leader and you're facing a business pipeline issue, the chamber is a place where you can meet people who are facing the same things that you are day in and day out, and we convene those conversations. So I think that part of navigating this continually changing business world is about availing yourself of organizations like the chamber that can really help you find solutions to your day-to-day problems.
Well, I've been really impressed with how responsive the chamber has been to new ideas like apprenticeships, and I know that's something that Mike Forehand recently did a presentation about, was apprenticeships. Now, back in the day, you apprenticed to a barber, you apprenticed to a brick mason, you apprenticed to an electrician. But apprenticeships, that same model, can work in different industries. It just hasn't been embraced in different industries.
We're seeing it emerge now, and in fact, Northern Virginia is a leader in that, particularly the Northern Virginia Community College system is really advancing that technology, but so are some of the other educational institutions. And it is absolutely being pursued in the technology space, government contracting. I mean, there's a variety of new opportunities. They're still relatively early, but I think they provide some really interesting models for much greater national scale, and starting here in Northern Virginia. So that's right. I think that there is certainly opportunities for those who may not, in fact, need a 4-year degree in order to do these roles, to avail themselves of apprenticeship opportunities.
And I know you've got great relationships with George Mason University and also with the Northern Virginia Community College as well.
They are active in the chamber, very accessible. And so again, anyone who wants to learn more about that, we can certainly provide information about it, and you can find them at our events very actively.
It's interesting. I remember a chamber event I went to that was talking about finding board members for nonprofits. I mean, this was probably, 3 years ago. And I thought, what a marvelous opportunity to talk about how companies should encourage their employees to be nonprofit board members.
One of the things that's wonderful about membership organizations, and especially an organization like the Chamber where it's a broad base of business, is there's truly a leadership development opportunity. Whether you're a business owner and you want to get more involved in your community, you're not really sure where to start, if you come to the Chamber, you'll start meeting all kinds of people and all kinds of opportunities. If you own a company and you have staff that you want to help them develop and grow, just as leaders, even within their own organization, again, a wonderful place to come, participate in an activity, and you don't have to commit for years and years. There are one-off opportunities to participate, one-off opportunities to speak, one-off opportunities to offer ideas, and so you can come and go in that volunteer model. And we're trying to be responsive to that because we know the world is a busy place, and business owners have to put their day job first. So we want to find ways that they can still contribute and lead, but we as the staff can support them as well.
Yeah, and one of the things that I like to do is bring young people to the chamber, especially for the chairman's luncheon, because I think young people, especially college students who've never been to an event like that, if they don't know what it means to sit in a room full of business owners and hear the stories when you give the awards out to these business owners and what you're giving these awards for. It's very impressive to me, but I think I'm the kind of person who I will bring somebody with me, and I hope other chamber members think to do that too. Like the best way to introduce a young person to the chamber isn't to send them there, but to bring them there.
Yeah, it is a better way in the sense that we all feel better when we walk in the room with a friend, right? But if you find yourself without a friend, come find me, come find one of the members of the staff, come find one of the volunteers. We will identify them quickly, and we'll be able to buddy you up so that you can find more friends there. So I agree. agree. If you can, bring a friend, but if you don't have one, we'll find you one.
Oh, that's perfect. So I think one of your next big events coming up is the 27th Annual Economic Forum.
Yes.
So I guess people maybe who haven't met you up to this point will hear from you in January.
They will. I believe it's January 31st, but
It is.
definitely check that website and take a look. We are really focused on the future. You know, we're looking back and thinking about all that has happened over the last many years and the evolution of the regional economy, and now what is next. And I think Amazon's going to figure very much in terms of folks' conversation there about what that means for the future. But it's not just Amazon. As we know, there are many new companies coming all the time. And we, of course, are very excited to await what will come because of this.
So the panels, I love the Economic Forum. I go every year, pretty much I think every year. But you always have different people who come to speak. Now, you know, Stephen J. Fuller was an iconic presence for many, many, many years. But I'm sure you've got new people who are coming too to talk about some of the things that we should be focused on this year.
Yes, there'll be a whole range. We're waiting on some confirmation on some of these folks, but yes, there will be some new voices, new faces, and I think it's really, as you say, it's about what's the exciting future that we have. And I think, again, too, this is an opportunity for business leaders also to not only hear what others are thinking and seeing, but there's something about going to one of these events that kind of, at least for me, when I go to professional development events, I step back and it sparks all kinds of other thinking for me. And I walk away, and that's one of the goals we have, is for all of our attendees to walk away with at least one actionable item. That something I learned that day, something I can walk back to my desk and actually do something about. Whether it's pick up a phone, call, make a change in what I do, we strive very much to ensure that our content is very rich in actionable information.
Well, I think one of the things I like too about that particular event is the people who explain the data. You know, and Stephen Fuller was very good about that. I'm sure your panelists will be too. But it's one thing to talk in broad terms about industries and economies and education, but it's something else to have somebody parse the data and interpret that data for you, because a lot of times we aren't paying attention. We don't even have access to that regional data. And somebody comes in and says and points out about where the job growth is, or where there's housing issues, or things like that.
Right.
You know, and you as a chamber, I think, have the pick of the experts simply because, again, you have credibility, you have clout in the chamber, is well respected.
We're very fortunate. I think the Chamber, through leaders like Jen Sciciliano and others, have spent many years creating this group that attracts, retains, promotes highly credible information and expertise. And so I'm very lucky to be able to build upon that long history that the Chamber has, and to your point, can convene around with great authority. And so when someone comes and they participate, I think they feel very, very confident that what they're hearing is credible, has impact, and that they can really take and use.
So you seem like you're getting your sea legs under you.
I'm trying.
I know. I mean, this is a lot. It's a huge organization, and in a very short period of time for you to be taking over the helm, especially for some of these bigger events. Gov Con was huge. The healthcare conference was huge. The economic forum. This is a very big deal.
Right.
So I just want to say thank you for spending some time here with us tonight.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. It's been just a true delight.
Well, and I hope our viewers at home also understand, as Julie says, take advantage, go to the website. The Economic Forum is one of the best things the Chamber does. The Chairman's Luncheon in June. All of the other opportunities that they have are open to everyone in the Northern Virginia community who wants to participate. You don't have to be a Chamber member to go. So I hope that you'll go to the website. I hope that you will take advantage of the fact that Julie has issued you an open invitation to please participate, because they have something at the Chamber for everybody. And I absolutely believe that. Thanks for joining us.